Hi folks, this is Philosophoid, and this is the second part of my review of Ali Dawah, claiming to prove God in 5 minutes. Before I begin, I wanted to clarify something I mentioned in my previous video about it being possible for a necessary being to be dependent. At 5-minute 50-second mark on the previous video, that is the part 1 of this critique, I said that it's possible for a necessary being to be dependent as highlighted in Paul Gould's paper. But Gould's paper doesn't really mention that. It was a mistake on my part. All that Gould was trying to point out was that the existence of other necessary beings, like the abstracta, poses a problem for the traditional theism. If you want to go down this rabbit hole, check out this entry for God and Other Necessary Beings on Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, link in the description below. However, none of this affects my critique of Ali Dawah's position because Ali Dawah simply labels the necessary being as God and doesn't provide any further argumentation or evidence. So, moving on, let's start where we left off.
So, but in a nutshell, do you guys accept that we all have to depend on something independent, which has to be God? Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense for us to be here.
Basically, like you said, there's a bunch of things that have been caused by an initial causer.
Yes. And that
why does that have consciousness? Or actually, like, have a personality, or what we relate to ourselves as, like,
exactly.
as having compassion. Like, that's not necessarily true just because there's an initial cause. That could be a rock falling.
Oh, good.
This is a great question by this interlocutor. To summarize his position better, why couldn't this necessary being or the first cause be a natural thing? Why does it have to be a God who has a relation to us or is compassionate and so on?
So what that means is, for example, that you guys would accept the premise of being a deist, meaning there is some kind of power, but why wouldn't it be a rock?
Didn't have to wait too long for Ali Dawah to commit another fallacy, this time of straw-manning the interlocutor's position. The interlocutor merely asks why does this necessary being must have consciousness or personality just because it's an initial cause. That's not what deism is. Deism merely states that the creator of the universe does not intervene in the universe. This deity could still have consciousness and a personality and yet choose not to intervene. The question still stands. Why does this necessary being need to be conscious and have a personality?
Well, what we say is that in our universe, there is intelligence, there is power, there is knowledge. Therefore, the independent being, which is God Almighty, he has to be the designer. He has to be intelligent. Because how can we have those properties in our universe, but God doesn't have those properties? How can I give rise to something that I do not myself have?
How can I give rise to something that I do not myself have? Now, this is one of the most common fallacies that theists commit while arguing for God, and it's called the fallacy of composition. The fallacy basically states that because something is true of the members of a group or a collection, it must be true of the group as a whole. In Ali Dawah's example, because intelligence exists in the universe, whatever made the universe or the universe as a whole needs to possess intelligence. This is obviously fallacious. A hydrogen atom does not have the properties of a sun like luminosity, yet their fusion gives rise to the sun, which has the property of luminosity. These properties are called emergent properties. Another example would be that of a hydrogen atom and an oxygen atom don't have the property of wetness individually, yet they give rise to H2O molecules, which is water, and which does have the property of wetness. So absolutely, certain properties could emerge from combination of things that don't themselves have those properties. Besides, if we were to use Ali Dawah's exact same argument of intelligence, power and knowledge and just convert it to stupidity, cowardice and illiteracy, we know that those things exist in the universe. How can we have those properties in the universe, but God doesn't have those properties? Therefore, God must also be stupid, coward and illiterate. Do you see why it's fallacious yet?
Oh, that's where evolution fits in, because the point is the most intelligent beings survive, and so over time you get more and more intelligent beings.
Okay, but
so you find, societies like we have today,
no problem.
where we can have conversations like that.
Of course.
That's another good objection raised by this interlocutor. Evolution explains the emergence of intelligence from non-intelligence indeed.
But if you think about it, evolution talks about, for example, the first cell. The first cell, where did that come from? Even if we go evolution, Yeah, evolution is not random events happening. There's order. Yeah, there's things that are happening. So, for example, our point is the first cell that was made. Yeah, where did that first cell came from? Which was my argument that it cannot come from nothing.
It cannot come from nothing? Notice that the interlocutors never claimed that it can come from nothing. They had already granted that something can't come from nothing in the very beginning of the conversation itself. Yet Ali Dawah is trying to refute an argument that no one really made. He's again straw manning. You must really ask yourself, why is Ali Dawah doing this? Doesn't it look devious and deceptive? Besides, what's this got to do with the objection that the interlocutor raised, that intelligence could emerge through evolution? This is a complete red herring. A red herring is something that misleads or distracts from a relevant or important question. Ali Dawah perhaps realizes that the interlocutor has raised a strong objection to his initial argument, so he simply ignores it and obfuscates the conversation. Or perhaps he's just rambling because he wants his audience to think that he had a response to every question, no matter how poor it was.
So
They've already replicated the first cells, like in laboratories. If you apply electricity to chemicals like clay, you can actually create self-replicating
good. But you know what they're doing? It's like, for example, I give you £20, you thank the £20 rather than thanking me, and you make, with that £20 you make more £20. They're using the cell that God made to replicate more.
And now Ali Dawah begs the question. Ali Dawah hasn't yet shown that God exists. After he does that, he'll have to show that the God is interested in creating cells. Then he'll have to show that these cells were indeed created by God and didn't just come about through some natural process. And once all that's done, then he can make a claim that he's making. At this point, he's just presupposing God.
The credit goes to God, not them. What they're doing is good. They're replicating it, they're using electricity to put clay, rah, rah, rah. I'm with that, I'm well and good. But you're taking the credit of God. Imagine, like,
it's showing that there is an explanation that doesn't rely on God.
No, but it does, because the fact that the first cell exists, where did the first cell come from?
Ali Dawah is on a hot streak of committing fallacies. He says the explanation relies on God, and the argument that he gives for this claim is that we don't know where the first cell comes from. This is the classic ad ignorantum fallacy, or appeal to ignorance fallacy. The inability of an opponent to produce a better argument is not sufficient reason to think that the proponent's argument must be accepted. Just because we don't know where a cell comes from is no reason to accept that God created it. Just like hundreds of years ago we didn't know where lightning came from, it was no reason to assert that God was raining down the lightning. God of the gaps seems to be the more precise fallacy that Ali Dawah is committing.
It cannot come from nothing.
He keeps repeating this straw man. No one is saying it came from nothing. I don't know why he keeps repeating that.
And the first one is quite a complex property here. We're not talking about just like a little liquid. It's got, DNA inside it and a variety of other stuff. And we know how the DNA works. It's the reason why you look the way you look and the way I look and the way you look. Yeah? DNA is something that is a property that's a working machine. Like this book has information in it, right? Information requires intelligence. The DNA is more complex than all these books put together.
So your argument basically is that because something's highly complicated, it can't be explained through any means other than an intelligent being making it.
Well, not necessarily, because then you would say, okay, well, God Almighty is more complex in design. Does he require a creator?
Good question and a good response by Ali Dawah. Quite a rare moment in this whole conversation.
My point is this: if there is design, it requires a designer.
After a bunch of gish galloping, Ali Dawah settles in on his argument that design requires a designer. This is a classic watchmaker argument, where a design implies a designer, but in the absence of a proper syllogistic argument, it's difficult to understand which teleological argument he's referring to. He needs to define here what he means by design. Example, is a snowflake designed? What about a naturally occurring crystal? Is that crystal designed? We know that they occur naturally. So how can we tell something is designed versus something that's not designed? He needs to put forward a criteria for us to analyze his arguments. He doesn't present an argument, but merely just keeps asserting his claims. Design requires a designer. Plain old assertion with no substance. He gave examples of DNA and information earlier, but he didn't provide any particular argument that I can analyze. All these could have arisen through natural processes. DNA could have been a product of natural processes emerging from primitive proteins. He needs to put forward an argument that concludes that it's done by God. Until then, we can simply use the Hitchens razor. That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Because the best possible explanation to that is, where did the first cell come from with this quite complex that it gave life, that scientists today are replicating via that?
This is getting boring. Again, the argument from ignorance. But wait, didn't he already reject that he's not talking about complexity earlier? And that the argument won't fly because God is complex? So that would mean someone would need to design God as well. So why is he using this complexity argument again? This is very confusing. I think Ali Dawah has managed to obfuscate the issue successfully for his interlocutor. Apologetics at its finest.
And even when it comes to aeroplanes, we learned to make these things via other things, like the flies, the birds. We look at how things work.
So we look at nature, learn from it, and build things using materials found in nature. What's the big deal about that?
We are looking at God's creation.
Ah, he wants to smuggle his God in here. No, Ali Dawah, we're not looking at God's creation. We're looking at nature. We already know that nature exists. You still haven't done anything to establish the existence of God yet, and yet you're making arguments as if you've already proven God. You've merely presupposed God, and you're making assertion after assertion.
But what we're doing, we're giving credit to scientists. Like, what field do you guys work?
No, we're at uni.
University, yeah? Imagine you do a university essay, and you get A star, and I'm sure you guys do, yeah? I'll pray for you guys. Imagine somebody took credit for that and said, you know what, I did it. Bridget, she copied from me. How would you feel?
Not good.
So how do you think with God Almighty, where people are giving credit to things that He has created?
Ali Dawah is a gift that keeps on giving. Another fallacious argument. This time it's a false analogy. In the example of someone taking credit from Bridget and claiming that they did the essay, we already know that these two individuals exist in reality as human beings. We have empirical evidence of human beings existing. We know colleges exist. We know that people write essays and steal from other people. However, in case of God, we don't empirically know anything about Him. So there is no question of taking credit for Him. What we do is we find ourselves in nature and trying our best to survive and make a living and find our purpose. You are just presupposing that all this is God's stuff. This is no argument at all. It's just an assertion.
Yeah?
How do you know that God's the creator of these things rather than the theories that scientists have?
Great question. It's quite telling how many words Ali Dawah uses to preach to these interlocutors. And just in one sentence, Bridget asks a more relevant and more intelligent question than Ali Dawah's entire speech. So, the question has been posed. How do you know God is the creator of all things rather than the theories that the scientists have?
Okay, no, okay, but when we talk about the Big Bang, we're going to a point of initial explosion. Yeah?
There's more proof for that than like the existence of God.
No, but this shows the existence of God. You know why? Because what you're saying is there was an explosion.
Yes.
Yeah, and the universe is expanding. And we go to a singular point where there's some scientists say that it was like the size of an orange. You're telling me that everything within this universe was the size of an orange. The point is, what
Created that.
caused it?
Well, there's theories that have developed now, where it says just that there was a universe before that.
Oh yeah.
And then
Multiverse theory.
and then it contracted and actually became the size of that, and then just
Okay.
this is the last big
It's
bang
called the
that we've had.
multiverse theory, or it's called the steady state theory, yeah? The point is this, even if that's the case, there are 1 million universes. The point is this, the fact that there are a million universes, what caused that universe to exist? Because what was our premise? Something cannot come from nothing. So those universes, either, were they always there?
Bingo, Ali Dawah, you finally seem to be getting it. Whatever is the initial natural state of the causal order, whether it's a singularity or the cyclic universe or a multiverse, that initial state of nature could have always existed. This is a much simpler explanation than God, as it makes fewer ontological commitments. This could very well be the necessary being. Let's take a listen from some actual experts in the field who know about this stuff.
Now, some cosmologists say that the theory of inflation, which began our understanding of the current universe at least, requires there to be a beginning.
Yeah, they're wrong. I think that, for one thing, there are theorems about what space-time can do. And you take space-time into the past, and number one, you make some assumptions. And number two, under those assumptions, you say that the classical space-time comes to a singularity. But those assumptions might be wrong. That's always a possibility. And classical space-time is not the fundamental answer. We know the world is not classical. We know there is quantum mechanics. No one has a quantum theory of gravity for which there's a theorem that says the universe had to begin. In fact, it is trivial to prove the opposite. theorem. If you have a time-dependent quantum state, it is obviously extendable infinitely far into the past.
So your position, to be clear, is that there's a quantum mechanical state that is the universe and the laws of physics as a singular package.
That's right.
And so does that mean that, from our perspective at least, that the universe is infinite in both directions?
That's right.
Past as well as future.
Yes.
And that at least has coherence, whether it's right or not.
That's right,
I'm
yeah,
not
exactly.
sure.
So in my favorite cosmological model, which again is always subject to updating when new ideas or data come in, the universe doesn't have a beginning. It does not come into existence at a moment in time. It always existed. It looks different from moment to moment. And we are only observing a tiny part of it, so we don't even know what the whole thing looks like. But there's no need for an explanation to cause a beginning, something coming to existence out of nothing.
I don't think it's a religious point, you see. I think it's can have been all there for all time. Einstein tried a steady model which was supposed to be stationary for all time. Newton thought that a similar sort of thing. He thought if there was a bit of instability, God could come in and fix it up again and let it keep going, you see. So this seems to be a view that other people have held before quite happily, that there could have been an eternal universe, and this is just a little more complicated version of an eternal universe. Thank you. Sorry, I should let other questions come in.
I think this would be a very apt place to conclude this video, with actual experts commenting on the topic. I will try and conclude the critique in the next part. Again, if you like my work, please like, subscribe, and help me spread the word. Until next time, peace out.